Many sports teams have as their mascot, their logo, their symbol of their team, they use an animal. The NFL has the Ravens, they have the Lions, they have the Bears, they have the Dolphins, and it goes on and on. In baseball, you have the Tigers, you have the Cubs, you have the Blue Jays, you have the Cardinals, you have the Diamondbacks, and in basketball, you have the Pelicans, and you have the Raptors, you have the Grizzlies, and you have the Bulls. And I often wonder, why do they choose these type of animals? And I come to the conclusion that the reason why they choose these type of animals is because of their strength and how powerful they are and how clever they are and how strong they are and how independent they are, how ferocious they are. They tend to be a predator and stuff like that. And that's why they choose them. But it makes them feel good because they're identifying with that type of strength and that type of power and that type of independence and that type of strength and that type of cleverness. But that's not who we are. We are none of those things. We're not as smart as what we think we are. We're not as powerful as we think we are. We're not as independent as we think we are. In fact, we're dependent. We're not as ferocious and all as we think we are. And I believe that the animal that best represents us, you and me, is not the lion, the tiger, or the bear. It's the sheep. That's what best represents us, or sheep. Why? Because we don't know that much. We're really not that smart. We really need a shepherd. We need to follow somebody. We need someone to hold our hand. We need someone to depend upon. I want you to stay tuned to this lesson. We're going to have a great lesson. We're looking at Psalm 23, and we're going to see why every sheep needs a shepherd and how better off we are when we follow that shepherd. Stay tuned. We're going to have a fantastic lesson. Glad you joined me today. Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. John W. Wilson III, bringing you the Sunday School lesson for this Sunday, November the 3rd, 2024. I want to thank you for joining me on today. The title of the lesson is Confidence in God's Shepherding. Confidence in God's Shepherding. Will come from Psalm 23, one of the most widely read passages in the entire Bible. So we're going to have a good time on today. Before we get started, I want to encourage you. I ask that you would hit the subscribe button if you're not a subscriber. Hit the like or share button if this lesson blesses you, or if you think it will be a blessing to someone else. I greatly appreciate it. I want to thank those who have recently joined and those who have remained loyal listeners to this to the lesson each and every week. Thank you so much. So let's get into our lesson. This lesson is attributed to King David. I believe that David is writing this probably in his middle age, midlife, maybe around 40 or something like that, maybe a little older, I'm not sure. But I say that because in order to write this psalm, he's had to have a lot of lived experience, meaning that he's had to experience some things. And I believe that the only way you can write this psalm unless you've been through certain things. And so I believe that David is writing this in a point in his life where there's peace. He was a man of war, battle after battle, enemy after enemy, conquering after conquering. But I think he's taking some time out during a peaceful time in his life where nothing is going on to write this psalm, to write this hymn, to write this poem to encourage other people. And so I think as he writes this, he's reflecting back on his life. He started off as a shepherd boy. He was one of 8 sons. He was chosen, least likely to be chosen to be king of Israel, the youngest and the smallest. Usually it goes to the oldest, but in this case, God sovereignly chose him to be the next king of Israel. And he looks about his life as shepherding sheep of all that he's learned. He was a great shepherd, and he learned as he shepherded, it taught him things about God, how God cares for his sheep, how God is really the great shepherd, the ultimate shepherd, and the ultimate caretaker of his sheep, which meaning that he takes care of his people. And then David reflects on how God took him from a shepherd boy to be in the household of Saul, to play music for him. And he reflects upon the jealousy that Saul had on him, how Saul tried to kill him numerous times, even threw a sparrow at him, tried to hunt him down, and how God orchestrated his escape plan each and every time, how God protected him, provided for him, and guided him down the right path always. And so God, he's looking back on his life. He's looked at as a shepherd and all those adventures there, those dangerous things there. He's in Saul's courthouse, how it was dangerous there. And then he's looking about how he became king. It wasn't easy. He's king and he's fighting the Philistines. He's fighting the Amorites. He's fighting all these people coming after him. And he looks back and said, God has been good to me. I can't take credit for myself. It was the hand of God ordering my steps that brought me to where I am today, that protected me in times of trouble, when I was a shepherd going down these dark paths, these dark roads, when there were animals out there. I killed this animal, this lion here. I killed this bear here. It was God. It was nothing but me. Saul tried to assassinate me. He had his army against me. He didn't lay a hand on me. And now my enemies, they have come after me. And yet they haven't laid a hand on me. And it's nothing but God. So as he writes this, he's likening God to being the great shepherd, the ultimate shepherd. And then he's likening himself and everyone else to being the sheep, much lesser than God. And I believe that when we have the proper view of who God is and who we are, I believe that's a testimony to the type of relationship we have with God. Oftentimes we get in trouble when we overestimate ourselves and underestimate God. But when we know that God is the shepherd and we are the sheep, then we have God in the right perspective and we have ourselves in the right perspective, and we know that we're in a right relationship. So David is writing this psalm, this hymn. He's reflecting back on the goodness of God, how God took care of him, how God has guided him, and how God has provided for him even when he didn't think that anybody would. God took care of him. And that's what a great shepherd does. He provides for his people, protects his people, orders their steps, keeps them out of harm's way, keeps them out of dangerous situations, protects them. And this is what God has done for him. So he starts this psalm out as saying, the Lord is my shepherd. And Lord here is meaning that Yahweh is my shepherd. He's using the name of God, Yahweh. So he's not talking about any God or the God over there or the God of the Amorites or the God of the Philistines or the God of the Egyptians or the God of anyone else. He's saying Yahweh, the God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Very specific who his shepherd is. So the Lord is my shepherd, meaning that I took this to mean the Lord is my caretaker or my care provider. That's what a shepherd does. I said it before. He takes care of his sheep. He protects them. He orders the steps. He feeds them. He guides them. He takes care, meets their every need. Not their every want, but their every need. That's what a good shepherd does. So he says, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Meaning that I don't want for anything. I look back at my life, God has provided me with shelter and food and finances, not in such a way that I did not want for anything. And so when I read this passage, it's really saying this: because the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. I lack for nothing. I need nothing. I am content. And we look back on our lives, and I know we've had some ups and downs, some challenges. David had challenges in his life. We have had maybe different challenges in our life than David. Some are great challenges, and some are maybe like myself, hasn't had too much go wrong. But there are people out there that have experienced death of children, death of siblings, death of parents, loss of job, have an enemy come to attack them. They've had people jealous of them. They can identify with what David has gone through, and they can look back at their lives as they reflect upon a moment in their life. They said, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. In the midst of my life, in the midst of my lived experience, my life experience, God has always been there for me. He's protected me when people tried to hurt me. He's brought me through difficult and tough times. He's been my provider. He's given me food to eat, shelter to stay, clothes on my back when I thought I was at my very end. He's protected me from my enemy. He's ordered my steps. He's guided me. A lot of us can relate to that. All of us should relate to that because God is our shepherd and we shall not want. It's not anything that we've done that we don't want anything. It's not the big job you have, the money in your bank, not your parents, and not that. It's God taking care of you, taking care of his sheep, his children, as a good shepherd does. Okay. He said, he makes me lie down in green pastures. And I want to say this, the reason why we need a shepherd, we are sheep and we need a shepherd. And I like to think that we're not as smart as we think we are. If you look at the other animals in the animal kingdom, the bear, the lion, the leopard, all those, the wild dog, all of those they live a life that they fear no one. They think they don't need anyone. They think they're independent. They're self-reliant, and that's good for them, but it's not good for us. The wise person, the person who understands who they are and who God is, understands that we need God desperately. A sheep is the dumbest animal, and that's why we don't like to relate to a sheep, because you don't see professional teams or any college teams name their mascot as a sheep, because nobody wants to be identified as a sheep. They're dumb animals. They're followers. They have to be cared for. They have to be told when to eat. They have to be guided to where the water is. They take a lot of maintenance. They have to be walked and managed every single day. They wander off. They drift off. They do things without thinking. They'll walk off a cliff if you don't watch them. They're not the smartest animal. They're not the bravest animal either. They get scared if they hear a noise. They're scared of one another. They hear a sound at night. They get terribly frightened. If the water in the river is running too fast, that scares them. They are very timid and scary animals. They are high maintenance animals. And that's really who we are. We're not as strong as we think we are. We're not as brave as we think we need to be. If we think we're independent and we can do it our way, then that's a sign of foolishness, and that definitely we on that broad road that leads to destruction. It's best for us to see ourselves as a sheep, a follower of the great shepherd who depends on him for our very life existence, who depends on him in every decision-making process, as one who orders our steps, who guides us, leads us, protects us, provides for us, meets our every need. That's why David can say, I shall not want. He recognizes who he is and who God is and how God has provided for him and will continue to provide for him. He's content. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. Another way to say that, he causes me to lie down in green pastures. See, a sheep, what it won't do, it won't lie down until it is totally secure, until it feels very safe. And so by having a shepherd, this great shepherd, this sheep feels relaxed. It feels secure. It feels comfortable enough so that it can lay down in green pastures and begin to eat. If that sheep is a little bit afraid, it will not lay down. It will lie down and it will not eat. And so because the Lord is a shepherd, the shepherd causes the sheep to lie down in green pastures so that it can eat. Okay, the shepherd, what it does, it takes the sheep out every morning and they walk during the wilderness. The wilderness is the desert. And in the desert, in some areas, there's not a lot of grass. It's green pasture, but it's not a lot of grass or to grow things or pastures to really grow crops. But it's enough grass for sheep to graze in. And so the shepherd gets up every morning and all day they walk around the wilderness finding places for these sheep to eat. Okay? So he maketh me lay down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. So not only does he feed him, the sheep have to be taken to a spot. See, the bear, the tiger, the lion, they can find their water, they can find their food, but the sheep cannot. It needs someone to take them out where to eat. It needs someone to take them where they can drink water. If they don't have that shepherd, then that sheep will die. Okay? So the shepherd is a good shepherd. And not every shepherd is a good shepherd. I want to tell you, but the shepherd that David has, Yahweh, the shepherd that is the shepherd of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Isaac, is the good shepherd, and he takes care of his people. And David is reflecting on that. He's looking back and say, gosh, when I was hungry, he fed me. When I was thirsty, he gave me water to drink. Can y'all remember a time in your life where you've been hungry and God has fed you? You needed something to drink and God gave you drink. You needed healing and God healed you. You needed a place to stay. God gave you a place to stay. That's what David is remembering. He is king, but yet he remembers how good of a shepherd God was to him. He was not always the king. He didn't always have abundance. He didn't always have peace. There were rough times in David's life, like there are rough times in our life, and God provided. And that's what he's doing on this psalm. He said, I remember when I was famished. I remember what it's like to go hungry. I remember what it's not knowing where you're going to spend the night. I remember when you're thirsty and couldn't find water. And I remember those times you met my need each and every time. Okay? He said, he restores my soul. So by God providing for him, able to eat in those green pastures, having water to drink, guess what? His soul is renewed. His soul is strengthened again. It's revitalized. It's restored. It has a new life. And because God takes care of him, David is saying that my soul is restored. Because I have a good shepherd. I have the great shepherd. My soul is refreshed. And God does that over and over again for David's life when he restores his soul on a continual basis. And that's what he does for us. Have you remember a time when your soul has been restored, you've been re-strengthened, revitalized? Look at how God has provided with you and say, nothing but God. And then you're refreshed, you're encouraged. So David's encouraged him. Look what he says here. He leads me in paths of righteousness. What a good shepherd does, he doesn't lead his sheep off a cliff. He doesn't take them purposely to dangerous situations. He takes to the path of righteousness a safe route, a straight route, a route that he knows is not dangerous. And he takes that path which leads them to the greener pastures. And so what I'm saying here, a lot of times our steps have been ordered. God has put us on the straight path. God has put us on the right path. How do we know we're on the right path, the straight path? If Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior, God has put you on the right path. God has put you on the straight path. God has put you on the path of righteousness. So here, a good shepherd will lead them in the right direction, will lead his sheep. He won't take them into any places they don't need to go, but he'll always take them to places that are safe, that are straight, that won't cause them any harm in any kind of way. That's a good shepherd. That's a good shepherd. So David's looking back on his life and seeing how God has ordered his steps, seeing how God has led him in the right direction. God, I could have gone this way, but you led me that way. God, I was heading down the wrong path, but you corrected my path. God, you put me on the right path to prosperity, that I can provide for my family, that I can eat, that I can have this and have that. God, you've always led me to safe places. And that's what he's thanking God for. He says, he leads me to paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Because of his reputation, God does that for David. God does that for you. Because he's a good shepherd, and he wants everybody to know that he's a good shepherd. So that's what a good shepherd does. He leads me in paths of righteousness, okay? Avoiding dangerous situations. Takes me away from places I don't need to be, that will cause harm to me. So look at verse 4. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. You know, a shepherd, when they take them out to graze and to get water, they go to places that can be dangerous, where there are wild animals, where there are snakes, there are bears, there are lions, there are other animals that will cause harm, where the winding road is dangerous. And so where it could be dark. And so when he says the shadow of death, he's talking about life and death situations, dangerous places where there could be floods, there could be water can rush and they can drown or they can fall off a cliff. And look what he says here. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Okay? In other words, when I walk into dangerous situations, okay, I will fear no evil. Why will the sheep not fear any evil? Because he has the great shepherd. He has the great shepherd following him, leading him. And he trusts that shepherd in such a way, he knows that shepherd is not going to lead him in a place that it may look dangerous, it may be dangerous, but that shepherd is going to protect them and lead them in such a way that they get out of that dangerous place. Because sometimes they had to go to the dangerous place to get to the green pasture, but he trusted his shepherd so much. Even in the midst of a dangerous place, even in the midst of the shadow of death, he trusted that shepherd so much, he followed him. And one thing about a shepherd is that just like you have dogs and cats that have names, every sheep had a name. And that shepherd knew every sheep by name. And the one thing I heard this story that's amazing on how sheep follow their shepherd. You could have 3 or 4 flocks that are grazing together. Or at nighttime, they may bring 3 or 4 flocks together, and all the shepherds take different points or different times in guarding all the sheep. And the problem comes up is that how do you tell which sheep is yours and which sheep is this person or that person? Well, all the shepherd does is the morning comes, he calls out to his sheep. The sheep recognize his voice, and they immediately follow their shepherd. A sheep that knows his shepherd will not follow another shepherd. He will follow his shepherd. And so it says here, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, why does the sheep follow him that way? Because he knows his shepherd and he trusts his shepherd. He knows his voice. He knows the history of this shepherd, that this shepherd has never done him wrong, never done anything to cause him harm, and that he's worthy of his trust, and he trusts him. Okay? And he knows his voice versus a false shepherd. A sheep will only follow his shepherd. Okay? He says, I will fear no evil because God is with me. That's why you're not fearing evil. No matter how dangerous it is. If I see a bear, I fear no evil because my shepherd's going to take care of that. And we can look back on our lives. We've been in some dangerous situations. I remember I've been in some dangerous situations I've stumbled upon. I got lost, shouldn't have been there, or I've done things I shouldn't have done, or tried to experience. I tried to change a water heater one time and didn't turn the power off, and God told me just to leave that alone. I left it alone. I believe he saved my life. I was stuck on a freeway one time in LA in the 405 and wanted to get out in the middle of rush hour, and the people were honking at me, and I was going to get out and push it. I had a friend with me, and right when I got out the car, God sent somebody to push me off the freeway, and I believe that day God saved my life. I was in a dangerous situation, and God saved my life. And because he did that, I know God will, whatever this dangerous situation I'll be in now, God will save me. I fear no evil because I know what he's done for me. I know God is a good shepherd. It says, for you are with me. God is with us. The shepherd is with the sheep as they go down dangerous places. He don't let the sheep go there on his own. He is with them always. And the sheep, when they hear, and what happens is that when the sheep is walking, the shepherd will talk to them. And as he's talking to them, it puts them at ease. If they get off track, he'll put them on track. He'll tell them where to go. I mean, the shepherd is talking to them. And so that's what God does. I will fear no evil because you are with me. And the reason why he doesn't fear, look what he says. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. One hand, he has the rod, which is going to ward off the enemy. If a bear, lion, or wolf try to come and get the sheep, he has that rod that will beat that animal away, will keep them away from the shepherd. The sheep know that. They feel comfortable with that. They know that he's ready for battle and that he will fight against the animal or anybody else at any cost. And that brings them comfort. And then the sheep knows that if they don't see that well, they're not that smart. But I know that he has that rod, that walking stick in his hand that has a little hook on it or something like that. If I get too far off track, if I seem like I'm getting lost, he's going to reel me in and make sure I'm staying with him. He's my security blanket. He's my protector. He's my guardian. He's my leader. And I will follow him. A good sheep will follow their shepherd. The sheep that get in trouble are the ones that do not follow or don't follow well. But here David has learned to follow God. He does it willingly because he says right here, I will fear no evil because you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. David looked back in the times of battle, in the times of Saul, in dealing with him as a shepherd boy with wild animals. And he's seen how God has protected him. He's seen it. He's experienced it. That's why he can write what he's writing. He's just not making up a song. This is his lived experience. He's testifying. And you and I have a testimony too. We should be able to write something like this. It won't be the exact word, but we should be able to write something like this. Our testimony, how God has cared for us through thick and thin, through high and low, through safe and dangerous places. How God has given me food to eat, shelter, clothing on my back. When I had nothing, when it looked hopeless, how he never have left my side. He's always been with me. Okay. And then we go to 5, the scenery changes. We were talking about a shepherd and a sheep. Now we're talking about a host and his guest. And our blessing goes up a level. It says, you prepare a table for me. What's table? That means a meal. That means a banquet. That means a feast of some sort before me. So in the presence of God's house, when we're in God's house, he's going to treat us with tremendous amount of hospitality and a tremendous amount of generosity. We're his guests, so we're sitting down and he's serving us this great meal. He's blessing us with food to eat, all that we want, things that we could never think of is there. He said, you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. And David says this, I've experienced this too. I have been blessed in the midst of my enemies. God, you have allowed me to prosper in the midst of my enemies. You have protected me in the midst of my enemies are looking on. They want to get me. They want to take me down, but they're looking at me. You prepared a table, and because you prepared this table, this feast, this fellowship banquet, they're not invited and they can't touch me. How many times has God protected you from your enemies? They wanted to get you, but God said, no, this is my child. They wanted to get you, but God kept them away. God changed their course. God did this and that happened. They got fired instead of you getting fired. You got the promotion instead of they got the promotion. They were harmed instead of you getting harmed. God kept them away. It says, you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemy. They're watching. God bless you. God elevates you, whatever you want to call it, and they can do nothing about it. That's a good spot. I've been in spots where people are attacking me. I give it to God and I see God work. I see God get me out of that situation. Or I see God protect me in the midst of that situation. Or I see God, people wanting to get me, but they can't do anything to me. It says, you anoint my head with oil, you bless me. You anoint my head with oil, with perfume. That was a sign of great, tremendous hospitality to anoint somebody with perfume as they come into your house. God is the perfect host. He's not going to forget anything. He's going to make you feel welcome. He's going to care for you. He's going to take care of you. And David says, I've experienced it with God. I've seen God prepare a table for me before my enemies. I've seen God bless me beyond my imagination by anointing my head. I've seen that. Okay? I've seen God's generosity. Okay? Because that oil is expensive. I've seen God's generosity with me. He's reflecting back. Probably midlife, a time of peace. And he's writing this psalm as a thank you to God for caring for him in difficult times, for being there with him, for all his promises. He says, you anoint my head with oil and my cup overflows. Not only do you get a cup of wine, but you keep getting cups of wine, so much so that it's overflowing and you can't drink enough. It's so much. God is just giving you all kind of blessings, outpouring with blessings, enough to eat, more than you can imagine, drink more than the finest of wines, more than you can imagine. God is just laying it on you. And David said, I experienced that with God. When you're in right relationship with God, you experience this. When you recognize how good God has been to you, you look back and yes, God has fed me. He set a table before me. Yes, God has anointed my head. Yes, God has given me, blessed me where it's just overflowing. I don't even deserve it. Okay? And then he says this, surely, that means for certain, goodness and mercy shall follow me. Because of what God has done for me in the past, I know he'll be that way for me in the future. And if I'm in right relationship with God, God will be that way with me in the future. Surely goodness, kindness, that's how I use the word kindness, mercy, God's steadfast love shall follow me. So David says, even though I'm in my midlife crisis, I got a lot ahead of me, life in front of me. God, just like you were with me in the past, you will be with me in the future. Okay? Shall follow me. In other words, shall be with me, will go with me wherever I go. That goodness and mercy will never leave me. If you're a child of God, right relationship with God, God's goodness and his mercy shall be with you for the rest of your life. It shall never leave you. It says, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. David was confident that God's blessing would be with him all of his life. It says this, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Because of my relationship with him, I shall dwell in the house. So that means that even after my days on earth are gone, I will dwell with God for an eternity. I will dwell with God in eternity. Whoa, this Psalms 23 is powerful. I want to know, what's your testimony? What would you write? How God has cared for you? What would your poem look like? What would your hymn look like? Talking about how God has cared for you, how God has provided for you, how God has blessed you, how he's guided you, protected you, all those good blessings. And in order for David to write this, it means that, and don't be scared, he's had to go through some things, had to have some tough times, had to have some difficult times, had to have some frightful moments, some scary moments, had to have some times of uncertainty. But he never gave up his faith in God. Remember, reading this right here, and what David writes, he was a man after God's own heart. This sounds like a man after God's own heart, in right relationship with him, wanting to please him. No, was he perfect? No. Did he sin? Yes. Did he have great sins? Yes, he did. But his heart was always with God. When he sinned, he repented sincerely. His faith was always with God. And so I want to encourage you. Think about the goodness of God. Think about how he's cared for you. Think about where you are in your life and how you got there. Don't be a complainer. I wish I had this. I wish I had more. No, be thankful for what God has done for you. Appreciate him. Tell him, I thank you for my good health. I thank you for my financial wherewithal. I thank you for the house I live in. I thank you for the car that I live in. I see that it was you providing for me. I thank you for allowing me to do the things that I've done, to worship you, to praise you, to serve in ministry. I see that it was you putting me on the right path that has allowed me to do all the things that I've done. And I thank you for it. Lord, I thank you for my relationship through Jesus Christ, my relationship with you through Jesus Christ. I thank you. I see how you have ordered that steps. I see how you have made that happen. I see how I started off so terrible. You straightened my path, put me on the path of righteousness, and led me to the greener pastures of eternal life. Only you can do it, and I give you the credit. Lord, I am the shepherd. I am the sheep. You are the shepherd. Lord, I am your follower. You are the great shepherd. Lord, I will follow anywhere you go. God, if you need to use the rod, use the rod. If you need to use the staff to guide me, use that. Wherever it needs to be, Father, keep me in line because I am your follower. Well, I hope something I said today has helped you in some kind of way. This is a powerful lesson. I feel very honored and privileged to be able to even teach this lesson because it is it's used at funerals, it's used in all type of occasions, it's just used in worship, it's used all over the place. And just to be able to teach it and understand it better has blessed me tremendously, and I hope it's blessed you also. Well, God bless you. I hope something I said helps you this Sunday. I hope you have a great Sunday school and a great Sunday worship experience. See you next week. Take care.